all of you. And as Pastor Tim said, we really did plan Refugee Sunday a very long time ago. I invite you to pray with me. Lord, open our minds, open our hearts, open our souls to hear and experience the word that you have for us today. Moses was a refugee. The Bible uses different language, of course. The Bible calls Moses and the Hebrews wanderers or exiles. But there are a lot of modern-day terms we hear in the news which might be applied to Moses and his people. You see, Moses spent his early life as an illegal alien. Born to Hebrew slaves, he is first smuggled into Egypt and then later as a criminal escapes into Midian. But each time, he is welcomed and saved by hospitable strangers. Eventually, God calls this refugee to go back to the family who took him in, the most powerful family in the world at that time, and demand that they give up their 2 million slaves just because the slaves God would like them to. Now, we happen to know how the story ends, that Moses leads the Hebrews out of Egypt and into the Promised Land. But sometimes, because we know the end of the story, we forget that those 2 million Hebrews didn't just quietly march into a country ready to greet them. Instead, they spent 40 years camped in a refugee settlement in the desert. For an entire generation, God's chosen people had no status, no country, no home to which they belonged. In fact, those who escaped slavery in Egypt, they died in that desert refugee camp, still waiting for God to answer their pleas. Over and over again, in the first 5 books of the Bible, we hear God remind the people, remember, you were once slaves in Egypt. Remember, you were once refugees in a camp. Remember the price of your freedom. They have been freed by God to love others, and thus they should never neglect to care for the least among them, the aliens, the widows, and the orphans, as an expression of the love God has first shown to them. Alien is another one of those Bible words like exile or stranger or wanderer that means refugee today. The Bible consistently demands that we care for aliens just like we care for orphans and widows, because we are all refugees. As many of us already know, the world is facing a global refugee crisis. We haven't seen a catastrophe like this since World War II. And just as a reminder, because the headline news often neglects to give us the full story, a refugee is defined by the United Nations as a person on the move, someone who has left his or her country of origin due to persecution, war, famine, crisis. They've left that country, but they don't yet have the permission to enter another country, and so they're stuck in that middle space. They're on the run with no place to go. That's a refugee. Currently, 1 out of every 122 people on the planet is a refugee. Over 60 million displaced persons. Yet, again, according to UN statistics, less than 1% of all of the world's refugees will ever be resettled into any developed country. In the midst of this global crisis, God is calling us to accompany people on the move, whether at an orphanage in Costa Rica, right here in our own community, or in refugee camps around the world, or even this afternoon, still held in detention at the Detroit airport. Ephesians chapter 2 explains why we accompany these folks. Because we are all refugees. Paul tells us that we are no longer foreigners and strangers, but instead we are fellow citizens with God's people and members of God's household. You see, you and I, we might not be geographic refugees. We might already have a legal passport. We may be living in the country that has always welcomed us. But you and I are still travelers on a journey, friends, because in the waters of our baptism, we left behind our sinful selves, and we joined the company of saints in heaven. Yet we are not living in heaven yet. Thus, our entire earthly journey of faith, from baptism until the gates of heaven, is one of spiritual refuge. This earth is not our home. This is not our identity. We aren't who we were. We're not yet who we will become. We are on a spiritual journey together. And like the Israelites in the desert, we are not alone. God is with us. God is before us. God is beside us. God is dwelling amongst us. And we are all refugees. Maybe you're in a spiritual desert right now. Maybe you are waiting for that call from the doctor. Maybe you are waiting for the news from the lawyer, the email from your boss, the acceptance letter from the college. And once that news comes, you know you can't go back to who you were before. But you may or may not quite be ready to go into that land of who you will become. In that moment, we feel most deeply what it is to be a spiritual refugee. Because of a generous fellowship from my seminary, as Pastor Tim explained, I am a pastor without a parish. I get to travel around this year going to meet fine folks like you at Westside Methodist, but I also get to go to places in Europe, Latin America, Africa, and all around the United States. And what I get to do is meet with refugees, immigrants, and the Christians who are serving them. It's a great gig, I gotta tell you. One couple that my husband and I got to meet were Mahmoud and Miriam. We met them on their very last day in the refugee camp in Budapest, Hungary. They are from an ethnic group in Afghanistan that the Taliban is trying to eliminate. They are part of the Afghani Holocaust. Most of their family has been killed in the violence there. And so just days after Miriam's brother was killed, they decided that was the time to be on the move. They spent the next 2 years in an underground railroad of sorts, walking towards their freedom. They spent a lot of months in outdoor camps, a lot of nights in indoor detention centers, a lot of days hiding from the Taliban who wanted to kill them. But all along the way, a surprising group of folks was very nice to Mahmoud and Miriam, the people the Taliban had always told them to fear, Christians. Christians consistently showed up and gave them a glass of water, a place to sleep, friendship, a hug, even when the government officials were not nice to them. When they arrived in Athens, Christian missionaries gave them food, shelter, and friendship. So when they invited Mahmoud to watch a movie in his own language about Jesus, he said, all right. When he got to Budapest, where it's illegal to be a refugee, the pastors showed up every week to be his friend. So when they gifted him a Bible in his language, he said, I'll read it. And because of God's work through God's word, Mahmoud converted to Christianity in the refugee camp in Hungary. And the number one thing he wanted to tell us, the number one thing he was excited about when he left that camp, he got to go to church the next day. He got to walk into a church freely. And he was extra excited. You know why? Miriam was expecting a baby. And that baby would be baptized, and that baby would go to church. He was so excited. He didn't want to tell me about the months and years they were on the run. He wanted to tell me how God changed his life. That's the refugee story I know. Those are the refugees I meet. Miriam, though, was still skeptical. She's lived a lifetime of the Taliban's lies, and she's pretty doubtful this new religion is really any different. She doesn't trust the Christian pastors. She doesn't believe the words in that book. And Mahmoud is not worried one little bit, because he knows that eventually the Holy Spirit is going to change her heart. And in the meantime, he is called to love his wife, just like God loved him. We are all refugees, people of God. And sometimes we need a human person to lead us through the desert. So what about you? What desert have you walked? How have you gone through your own desert moments when you had to share the burden with other people, when you had to rely on God's promises because your own efforts weren't getting you anywhere anymore? Maybe we weren't slaves in Egypt. Maybe we did not flee a war zone. Maybe we've never been detained at the airport. But we are spiritual refugees. And while we are spiritual refugees gathered here together in our beautiful, comfortable church, we know there are millions of others around the world living in temporary shelters praying for mercy and deliverance. And there are thousands of refugees currently setting up new lives right here in Michigan. You and I might not know what it's like to live in a refugee camp. But when I see folks arriving at Detroit Airport with nothing in their pockets but hope, I know that God is calling me to help those who need it the most. Since the 1950s, Samaritas has been resettling refugees right here in Michigan. First, it was the Europeans post-World War II. In the 1970s, it was Asians. In the 90s, it was Africans. And today, it is folks from the Middle East. In fact, Michigan takes more Iraqis and Afghanis than anywhere else in the nation, almost all of whom served with our soldiers and are refugees because of that fact. And what you may not know is that the United Methodist Church is leading the way here in the United States, in Michigan, and all across the world. The United Methodist international work is helping refugees all around the world. Right here in the United States, they partner with a group called Church World Service, which resettles refugees in 35 locations. In Michigan, the United Methodist Church partners with Samaritas to resettle refugees, and the United Methodist Church sponsors something called Justice for Our Neighbors. Right here in Southeast Michigan, there's a clinic in Ypsilanti. The JFON of Southeast Michigan is one of the biggest in the nation, and what they do is they provide free or low-cost legal help to immigrants and refugees so that folks can be on the right side of the law and they can get the help they need. You see, contrary to popular opinion, refugees only arrive in the United States after an extensive 18-month, 14-point process. It's the toughest way to get into the United States. And once they get here, they get very minimal assistance from the government, and only for 12 weeks. We took in fewer refugees last year than almost any other time in our history, and we're probably going to take in fewer this next year. But every time a refugee arrives, it takes the work of nonprofits, congregations, and volunteers in order to welcome them to our community. A new organization called Washtenaw Refugee Welcome is helping individuals volunteer and donate right here. I am so excited to talk to you in coffee hour about how you can connect with Samaritas, Justice for Our Neighbors, or Washtenaw Refugee Welcome right here in our community. And I gotta tell you, even though I spend all of my time dealing with refugees and immigrants, and I'm a pastor, and I love this stuff, I gotta tell you, I started to wonder on my bad days whether what we were doing was really making that big of a difference. Then I got to meet this family in Germany. This family walked from Iran to Germany because once they converted to Christianity, they were set to be executed for their faith. They were not allowed to baptize their daughter. They were not allowed to own a Bible. It is illegal to be a Christian in Iran. So when Shora's uncle told her Germany has opened the doors, they decided that was their chance. Shora put 6-year-old Anita on her back, Omar packed a suitcase, and they walked at night for 14 days to get to Germany so that their daughter can be raised in the faith. And in the 8 months they had been in Germany, they had been transferred to 4 different shelters where they slept on the floor and got 1 meal a day. And I learned then that Germany isn't that much different than the United States. There was very minimal assistance for refugees, and most folks didn't want them there. And I thought this family would complain about their journey or their accommodations. But instead, Omar said, please tell them. Please tell them about Pastor Jen's church. The church 2 blocks away made it feel like home. The church ladies invited Shora to Tuesday knitting time. They knit little hats for the orphans in Romania. The church folks gave Omar a bicycle and taught him how to get to work safely. The church folks packed a backpack for Anita. The church folks invite them to church every single week and make them feel welcome. And so every single week, this Iranian-German Christian family invites their friends to come with them to church. Friends from Syria and Sudan and Serbia. Friends who say, that church doesn't want me, that church doesn't like me, and little Anita says, they like me. I think they'll like you too. And Pastor Jens tells me that every single Sunday, another refugee family walks through the door and in broken English or German says, can you tell me about Jesus? People of God, I cannot promise that refugees will come streaming down that door every day. But I can promise you that every single person I've met who's decided to welcome the immigrant, the refugee, the alien, and the stranger into their community, God has worked through them in amazing and miraculous ways. Folks, we are prepared for this moment. God has been working in our community for generations. God is calling us to make a difference today, now, in the midst of the crisis we are in, because we are all refugees. God has delivered us from the chains of sin. God has led us through our spiritual desert, and now God calls us to carry each other's burdens on our journey to the promised land. Thanks be to God.